Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, February the 11th. And today we're going to be talking with one of our favorite people, Leslie Eastman. Leslie is a great friend of our show, as well as a contributor to Legal Insurrection, and the one person we always go to when we want to talk about mandates and so on, and also our great Valentine's Day friend. So, Leslie, welcome to another of our Valentine's Day chats. How are you today?
Uh, Happy to be with you once again, and happy Valentine's to you and your lovely wife and
Thank
our
you.
studio audience. I hope it is a very blessed one filled with chocolate and flowers.
Well, we're going to have a little bit of that, but we're also going to be doing some babysitting duties for two little boys whose parents need to celebrate Valentine's Day, and I don't blame them for that. So they're going to go out and celebrate Valentine's Day, and we'll probably get to enjoy the Saturday night with our two grandsons. And actually, when you become a grandfather, all of a sudden spending Valentine's Day with your grandsons is actually a treat. So it's not
I'm
work.
looking forward to grandparenting at some point in the distant future.
Yes. Well, sometimes it comes faster than you think it does, but sometimes, it's good for the right moment. But I can tell you that just from a personal standpoint, it's so much fun to have them because they grow up very fast, as you know, with your own son, and we have three, and they grew up so fast that before you realize it, they are in junior high and then in high school or in college or in the service like your son. So I want to enjoy them and make sure that I can get to play with them. So we're going to have a Valentine's night with a couple of boys one who runs around a lot and the other one who will probably be crawling here pretty soon. So you know what it's like as a mom, how that was was done. So also happy Valentine's Day to you and your family. And I'm sure you'll have some fun. You look like a Valentine's Day guest today with your red. So you look the part today, Leslie.
Well, I always try to, theme with the show, as you know, and
Right.
this show is very near and dear to my heart. I wouldn't miss one of our Valentine's Day podcasts
Absolutely.
for all the world.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have you as well. But we do have some serious topics that we want to get into as much as we can in the atmosphere of Valentine's Day. You wrote a fantastic article about the truckers in Canada and the media. And in fact, I put a link to that article in my Friday morning American Thinker post. And the reason I thought it was so interesting, Leslie, is because you were writing about the media and the way the media is reacting to the truckers, and you remember to the Tea Party how the the media here treated the Tea Party. So I thought it was beautiful. So why don't you tell us about the article and why you wrote it?
Well, there are a couple components when you're looking at our media, especially to pay attention to. And one is what they choose not to report. And there was an attack on the trucker protesters in Winnipeg. It was clear after the citizen was arrested that he was a liberal activist. He had a bit of a criminal record and he targeted those truckers. And mercifully, though he drove the van into the crowd, nobody was killed. Four were injured, but nobody was killed. Not one word in any of the main Canadian broadcast networks, not one word in any of the media I could locate. Where I had to track those records down was via the internet and via the Daily Mail, the British coverage of the events in Canada has been very sound and very helpful as I follow along. That was component one. But component two was how our media, especially, is covering those protests. And what really hit me was how the New York Times described the truckers as anti-government. Those truckers are not anti-government. They love their country. They are there because they are patriots. They resent the mandates, and there are a number of other issues that apparently fall out as a result of those mandates. That's why the protests. those citizens don't feel their government officials, especially Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, are addressing their concerns respectfully. And given the fact that Trudeau was bringing up fascist, Nazi, and Confederate flags, which were clear plants, was another step in that. And I think one of the things that I really got angry with the Tea Party is how the reporters would come on to our scenes and lecture us about the Constitution, lecture us about history, and we always had the better, more correct assessment of whatever issues they were trying to look down their nose on. And I'm really covering because I think the Canadians are representing individualism, freedom, the really marking the end of the pandemic mandates, and we're entering a new era. And you see throughout the world protests going on against government pandemic policies being continuously held onto by elite politicians. And the Canadian flag is flying nearly everywhere that you can be seen. So when you're looking at our media, part of the problem, and I think it's come to a head, is nobody trusts as a news source because we have had tons of experience in dealing with it with the Tea Party, and we're able to share that with the Canadians. And if you contrast what is really occurring in Canada, as you see on social media with bouncies and citizens singing and the waving fuel cans as they are working around the dictates of the Ottawa Police Department, versus the reports coming out of American and Canadian elite media, they're finding it very hard to demonize the Canadians. And for that, I am really grateful the Canadians are doing it.
Right. Well, one of the interesting things for me, I have a friend in Toronto who I met because he wrote a book about Cuba, and we become, friends. And he was joking with me, when he heard about the Confederate flags, he was joking with me that he's lived in Canada all his life, and he doesn't remember anybody ever joining a Jefferson Davis club or Robert E. Lee Club. I mean, that just all this stuff about Confederacy is all made up, or maybe because somebody puts a flag, all of a sudden you're branding a whole group, and the same with a Nazi flag. I mean, you're always going to have crazy people in any size march, and this is huge, this one up there. But I agree with you. These are patriotic people. These are people who are concerned about their livelihood and their families. And that's why they're doing this. They want their lives back, or maybe their freedom back. And I just thought the posture by the prime minister was so weak. I mean, for him to attack these people, and then I guess he's disappeared. They tell me he's got COVID. If he's got COVID, fine. I hope he recovers. That's fine. But he's so weak in how he's presented himself, Leslie. I mean, he looks so weak compared to these truck drivers, Leslie.
Yeah, he has. I think he's getting a lesson in humility. He's a representative. He was elected to represent, but he is not representing. He is trying to dictate to people who are no longer having it. And opposition smells blood in the water. In fact, there's some liberal parliamentary member who went after Trudeau for causing divisiveness. And as of right now, at least for the provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Prince Edward
Alberta,
Islands,
right?
and Quebec have all rolled back their
Mm-hmm.
mandates, rolled back their policies. Rumor had it last night Ontario would be joining them. And as we all know, if you read today's post at Legal Insurrection, got to plug my Legal Insurrection post in,
Please do.
the
Please do.
Ambassador Bridge, responsible for 28% of the traffic between the US and Canada, is blocked up. And so it seems like Ontario is poised to roll back. And so a lot of dominoes are falling. And if Trudeau were sensible, he would just go, okay, pandemic, even if he's got to use Omicron as his excuse. Okay, Omicron, it's like a cold, open it up, no big deal. He could open it up and end this and maybe salvage something. But right now, if he doubles down or if he follows what Biden has recommended, Biden wants him now to use the federal force of the Canadian government. And as I noted yesterday, given all of Biden's successes, Trudeau should do the exact opposite. Roll back the mandate,
Right.
admit he was in error, have photo op with the leaders of the truckers, shake hands, and go on to lead his best life at this point forward.
Right.
There is no winning for him, and
No,
all he can do.
Trudeau may be coming down. I mean, they have the parliamentary system, so they can change a prime minister much easier than we can because we have the elections. But no, he's turned out to be a very weak and just imagine how different things would be if he had from the very beginning said, look, guys, why don't we sit down and talk about and let's try to persuade each other. But instead, he decided to do the Canadian version of the deplorables, what Hillary
Mhm.
Clinton did in 2016. And I
Mhm.
just think it's all backfired on him, completely backfired. He looks weak. That's what he looks like.
You can't demonize Canadians. You just can't. They're so nice. It's impossible. They had to plant flags. That's the thing. We have seen January 6th, and we have seen the Gretchen Whitmer setup. So we are aware that the government is putting in infiltrators and setting up scenarios so they can demonize political opposition. We've seen that, and it's happening in Canada. And as the American truckers get ready for their freedom convoy, and that's on the horizon, do not think we are not all unaware of the FBI and their khaki wearing blue shirts, you big watches with sunglasses. We're trying to seem like one of the regular folks going in to protest. That's done. That plan's not going to work anymore, people. And one of the things I wanted to do this Valentine's Day was really focus on good news. And the Canadians very nicely have obliged us because so many mandates have rolled back in their country and starting in our country and in Europe. Life is returning back to pre-pandemic normalcy, such as it is. So that I think I've I haven't felt this optimistic since November of 2020.
Okay.
So
No, but you're
uh,
right. A lot of the provinces are turning back, and like you said, Ontario is next, and that's a big one, of course. So no, I think there is reason to wish every Canadian a very happy Valentine's Day because they've done the world a tremendous favor by what they
yes,
did, and you're right. You never think of Canadians as people who get angry, except for hockey. Now they do take hockey very seriously, but we'll forgive them for that. I'm actually cheering for, even though I'm not watching the Olympics, I am cheering for the Canadian team to win the Olympics. I mean, the ice hockey, that is, because I think everybody's a Canadian trucker now, like you indicated a few minutes ago. Well, another big story, and you've spoken about COVID with us many times. Over the last couple of years, we've been hearing Democrats talk about how they're going to follow the science. Well, it looks like they're following political science now because they're looking at all the polling information and public opinion. They're starting to roll back some of these mandates. I want to get your thoughts on this, Leslie, but I always thought that putting a mask on school children was the dumbest thing in the world. How do you feel about that, Leslie?
um, I and you can see this goes back to 2020. I've always deemed the use of those masks ineffective. First of all, they aren't designed to trap the small size viral particles. They were just never going to work. And even if you were using N95s, those are designed for occupational use for very specific work situations. They weren't designed for 8 hours a day. And if you're relying on people to properly maintain, to secure a fit, or to do other things you need to wear respiratory protection, you're doomed to failure. And these were always going to fail. But beyond that, the fact that these young kids are trying to communicate, they're trying to learn to navigate social situations, and facial expressions are a large part of those. that they're uncomfortable and hard to breathe and hard to do athletics and hard to even just to sit there and be comfortable. Um, they should not have been implemented, and after it was clear they were not effective, and you can see curve after curve that places where they were required are doing no better, no worse than places where they weren't. It should have been pulled. And just because Randy Weingarten wants to, show everybody how she's a big teachers union president and she's got all this power, she just sacrificed all the kids for this altar of power and glory. And one of the most joyful yet heartbreaking video clips I've recently seen was this morning, that in Las Vegas, a group of kids were told they no longer had to wear their masks. They pulled off their masks and they started dancing around and shouting with such joy. And part of it is you're celebrating with them, but part of it is you're weeping because this was 2 years,
Right.
or a large part, a significant part of their life. They were thrust to follow these orders, and they're free at last. And again, more good news for our Valentine's Day audience this year.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned the schools and the mask or the kids. The Catholic schools, for example, were opened 2021, 21, 22, and they did not have any serious outbreak of COVID. I mean, they were careful and they took measures to protect the kids, obviously. But they weren't forcing anybody to do anything, and they were able to survive the school year without any incidents. And I think that here in Texas, the public schools were open most of the time too, without any mask, and there were no serious problems. I always felt that, um, maybe I'm too cynical, but I always felt that this thing with the mask was all about control and all about promoting, in a sense, having the teachers union promote themselves or promote their power. But I think it has completely backfired, because now I see more and more movement in the direction of school choice. And I see more and more parents who are saying, no, we're going to control this. And one of the most beautiful things, talk about a happy Valentine's Day subject, Leslie. One of the most beautiful things is the way the mothers stood up and just stood up for their kids, and they fought for their kids at these school board meetings. We saw what happened in Virginia. And that's, to me, that's the story of the last 12 months, how the mothers fought for their kids and almost became a movement, whether they meant to create one or not, but they became, Leslie. I mean, the mothers are the story, the political story of the last 12 months. Mothers, and, like you got involved with the Tea Party and so on years ago. So, I mean, I feel great. I mean, I actually feel very optimistic about the future, Leslie.
Yeah, I'd like to expand upon that. I think the parents in the United States are kind of the Canadian truckers in our country. They are on the forefront of this battle, but it may not be as picture worthy as flying the Canadian flag and truckers hockey, but it's still extremely effective. And I've seen report after report of school board positions being targeted, local elections being targeted by citizens activists, way more enthusiastic about getting in there at the grassroots level than they were at the Tea Party. Basically, this is the Tea Party magnified by about 20 in
Right.
terms of just overall enthusiasm.
No,
And
you're
it's
right.
because in the Tea Party days, I think a lot of us were there because of Obama's economic policies. I know that
Yes.
mortgage forgiveness plan that he had going was what drove me into that. But when you impact the kids as severely as you've impacted the children with the pandemic policies that were prolonged, not based on the science, but based on the raw use of power, then you've got citizens, Democrats, independents, Republicans, who are going to go to the level that they can find and be most effective at. And so a there's going to be sea change in November. And I'm not even concerned about the Senate or Congress. I want to pay attention to local elections because it's
Right.
the school boards that we are going to see some significant differences. Once we get the school boards and other lower levels, it's just a matter of time before we get in and are more involved on higher level. So while I'll follow the Congress and I'll follow the Senate, I'm going to be, there's so many stories about regular moms and regular dads going and targeting congressional seats. And I think nearly 30 Democrat congressmen have decided they're retiring. And this is fairly early on. And
Hmm.
the primary season, I think we're going to start seeing the seed change. Maybe not
Right.
as dramatic as Tucker's, but it's
No.
going to be a significant seed
No,
change.
but what you're saying about the school boards and the local elections is so important because generally there's apathy in those elections. You'll have less than 10% of the
Ooh,
people vote, but not
not this
anymore.
time.
And we've seen here that in Texas, and I'll give you a personal example. A friend of mine who lives in Virginia, he's politically active. He follows things, but he said his wife was always completely disinterested in politics, didn't care for it. But last year, when they had the election, she became very active in the movement. And what got her active was the fact that it was her kids. I mean, it wasn't so much the party or the ideology, it was just the kids. And we saw Democrat women, mothers, vote for Youngkin in Virginia again because of the kids. And we're seeing here in Texas, Leslie, the school board elections all of a sudden have become really contested and people are running. I think that's good in the long run.
Oh,
And another
absolutely.
unintended consequence of all of
And,
this, Leslie.
there's one other calculation the Democrats failed to make in their lust for power. Those kids eventually will grow up
Right, right.
and start voting, and they are not going to forget ever what they went through for the past few years. Interestingly, in Oakdale, California, high school students went in and went to school with no masks. And there was a big protest of mask-free high school students that I also captured on a post. And I suspect that those students are not going to be terribly impressed by the party that thrust those pandemic policies on them. So I think we're going to be seeing the political fallout for many years to come.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience that mothers can have a tremendous political influence on. I mean, I know in my case, my mother was always an influence in my politics and how I voted, and her ability and willingness to share her own thoughts about things. So I think, in fact, I think my late mother would be very proud today to see all those mothers, marching and because she was always. I think in her heart, she was always an activist. So she would have been very, very happy to see all those moms. Well, Leslie, I think as we wrap it up, we should say, in fact, there's a note here from somebody saying that we should be honking our horns in support
That,
of
unfortunately, it's an homage to the Canadian. Yes, that's right. It's all staged. I have a garbage truck out here. He's honking. It is an homage to our Canadian friends up north.
that's
Go
right.
Canada!
Yeah, so as I said a few minutes ago, I am actually cheering for the Canadian hockey team this year to show my support for what they're doing. But we're going to wish all the Canadians up there a very happy Valentine's Day because they've earned it this year. But let me give you another quick example of the media and how they play with this. There was a story coming out of the Canadian media that there were children in the trucks. The suggestion was that these children were unprotected, unsupervised. But when you really read the story, the fact is that most of these children came with their parents. They're not living in the trucks. I mean, they came with their parents. So, I mean, look, if their parents want to bring the children, that's their call. Nobody should stop them from that. And I think that the reason those kids were in the march is because they wanted to show solidarity with their parents. So the media misleads so much that it's really sad. I've gotten to the point, Leslie, where I really don't believe a lot of the media. I tend to read what they say and then I go to sources, excuse me, like you, to get my story, Leslie.
Yeah, I find, I don't know. I was reading, come across a Yahoo News headline that Biden's giving an A- grade in the economy for, and I'm looking. Yeah, I'm not buying it. That's so much gaslighting. When you have to really question whether what you're seeing is propaganda or not. You're not doing journalism right. And I'm
That's right.
sorry, my father professor of journalism, saw this from the distance, saw this in the late 70s, saw this after Watergate. Um, he saw what his students were like after Watergate, tried to convince them to go back to old fashioned who, what, where, when, why, and how. Unless you're doing an editorial, opinions are out, facts are top, uh, let people decide. And he ended up having to just end that particular phase because he just couldn't take it anymore.
Mhm.
And much to the same in sorrow. And meanwhile, I'm digging around, finding True North, finding Ezra Levant on the Canadian side, finding the Daily Mail and other British publications actually covering news, whether or not I like it all the time. I don't, but at least I sense I'm getting facts. And then the media has the temerity to wonder why a podcaster like Joe Rogan, who gets a much larger audience simply because he asks questions without an agenda. You know, we don't need an agenda. I don't need my news packaged in a right mode. People don't need their news packaged in the left mode. They just need the facts straight up. Be even handed, and the chips will fall where they may. But
Right.
when you have to dismiss every report coming out of the upcoming American trucker protest, I imagined, and I've been told that they're going to start in Southern California, where I'm from. And I will try and see the start of that if it works out for my schedule. And I will report on it simply because I do not trust that our media will give an even-handed coverage. And I'm sure that the truckers who several of them have participated in Tea Party, they've seen how the January 6th information is manipulated. They're aware of federal Department of Homeland Security and FBI agents and the shenanigans they're up to. So it's definitely going to be some interesting times, and I am sure when we hit our St. Patrick's Day podcast, the
Well,
ones
I
that we
think,
wish will be with us, and we'll be even covering
well,
even more good news at that
yeah,
point.
I was just going to close with, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I'm going to close with a question. I know you're a big fan of Cleopatra. So, what do you think Cleopatra would say about the truckers?
Um, she was always a very shrewd politician who knew which way the political winds. If she maybe had not fallen in love with Mark Antony, she might have dealt okay with Augustus Caesar, but love gets in the way, romance. But I think seeing where the political winds were taken, she would have, uh, said, okay, Omicron or whatever excuse. The gods have spoken. ISIS has come down to me. Truly, it is a miracle of ISIS. The pandemic is over. Let me talk to the truckers, and glad handed the truckers, and photo opportunities carved into the Egyptian walls, and would have been hailed as a great merciful mother of the country. That is
Well,
how it
there
would
you
have
go. There you go. I had a feeling that Cleopatra would have something to say about this and that you would be able to reflect her views. You're a big fan of Egypt and Cleopatra. I want to thank you again for your participation as always, and happy Valentine's Day one more time. You certainly look like Valentine's Day, all dressed up in red, and that's great. I have the boring blue suit, but you know me, I'm kind of traditional, but anyway, happy Valentine's Day to you and to your family. I hope you have a great one. And we're going to be doing these videos more often. I like this format. I really do.
yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. And always on behalf of many people who read your stuff at Legal Insurrection, you do a great job. And I enjoy your posts every time they are available. Keep up the great work. We love what you do.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I appreciate it. And I'd like to give one other shout out, if I
yes,
may. Legal Insurrection, superb, great writers. We're doing some great work there, especially critical race theory and pushing back on that.
yes.
But also, if you need a news aggregator because you're tired of Drudge, rantingly.com. Best news aggregator out there. None of the drama, all the great hits. So between Legal Insurrection and Rantingly and a few others like Instapundit, you get your news from those sources. You're getting quality news.
Well, I saw your post was featured at Instapundit recently, so congratulations on that. That's absolutely great. I like those two sources that you mentioned. I love Instapundit. That's a great place to get news quickly. And our good friend Don Server also posts
Oh
things on
yeah,
there.
Dawn is wonderful.
Don is
Yes, Dawn
absolutely great.
absolutely first stop every morning because she's got a sense of humor.
That's right. He's great. Yeah, he's great. Our good friend from West Virginia, Don. Don, if you're watching, hello from Texas to you and to your family. Leslie, have a wonderful day. Thank you again for joining us. You're always great, and we'll see you hopefully very soon, and hopefully before St. Patrick. We'll do another.
Well, yeah,
We'll do
we'll schedule around St. Patrick's Day again. Luck at the Irish, and hopefully we'll have some great news about the American truckers.
well. If we do that, then we better think about wearing something green for St. Patrick. For that, we have to prepare ourselves with something green. You have a wonderful day. My best to you, and thank you as always for your time. Bye bye, Leslie.